In today's episode, we are going to review two budget Fuji 56mm lenses that serve as alternatives for the Fuji native ones. And we're talking about the Sigma 56mm and the VILTROX 56mm. Both of these have a max aperture of 1.4, so fast lenses. Both of them cost under 500 euro. The VILTROX is roughly 320 euros, whereas the Sigma is a little bit more expensive at 420. So in this video, let's first do some basic things as to look at these two lenses more up close, and then we're going to go over to the photography part. How do both of these lenses perform, and do they deliver? So let's first have a closer look at the VILTROX. So we have both of the lenses here. Let's have a look at the build quality first. So we have here the VILTROX 56mm f1.6. As you can see here, let's first start with the lens hood. Very simple but sturdy. Yeah, it feels metally, but I think it's some kind of polyester. It's pretty good. If we look here at the minimum focusing distance of this lens is about 60 centimeters. Aperture 1.4, as we know. The diameter is literally a cool 52 centimeters. The aperture ring, as you can see here, is relatively smooth. Also completely clickless, except on the F16 point, where you definitely feel the click before you switch into automatic. If we open up the actual underside, we see a nice metal gauge, the electrodes here, a USB connection to do the firmware upgrades, and that's pretty cool. You don't need a dock for it, and it is not weather sealed. It has no buttons for image stabilization. So overall, this is a very basic lens for a very affordable price of roughly $300. Next lens here is the Sigma, which is a very different build. There's no aperture ring, also no buttons, just like on the VILTROX. You'll also see that the ring here for the the focusing ring is extremely smooth if you compare this to the VILTROX. Yeah, I mean, this is maybe a bit too smooth. There's a simple rubber or plastic cap on it. f1.4. The minimum focusing distance is roughly 50 centimeters. It's got a 55mm filter thread. And if we look at the bottom, yes, it is a very nice metallic build as usual, and it has a little bit of a weather sealing here with the rubber gasket. So yeah, a pretty sound, pretty nice, small kind of to take with you lens. And to be very honest, yeah, what more do you expect? First things, what is important to me is minimum focus distance, minimum focus distancing, autofocus, and how the colors are rendering, and if there's any clipping or fringing. Now, when it comes to autofocus, the VILTROX actually disappointed me a bit. I have multiple shots where I know that I put my camera settings on a single shot, focus dead in the center, like this couple you see walking over here in the picture. I really focused it on the bag of the lady, and what really happened was that it was completely out of focus. It actually went a bit further, so I calibrated my camera once again, the Fuji X-T2, and I started shooting a bunch of people. And in a lot of cases, especially on closer distances, 3 to 6 meters, the camera completely missed the spot focus, or the lens, I don't know what it is. So I updated my firmware, did it once again, and still it is inconsistent. I don't know if you have the same. If you have, please let me know in the comments below. It could be that I have a bad copy, but that was one of the first things that I noticed. Still, the manual focus on this lens is pretty good. I love the focusing ring, but that's one of the first things I noticed. One of the other things that I noticed, and this is a bit more troublesome, is the image quality, specifically when you shoot wide open up until f2.0, 2.8 at times, you see purple and blue red fringing, both in a studio setup and outside. And that was the one thing, as you see here in the studio, you see at f1.4, you see definite fringing, you see some bad fringing. Outdoors it was exactly the same, and that was very disappointing for me, because you do buy this lens because of its fast aperture. The inconsistency in autofocus really made the entire experience not what I really expected from it. Then there is the aperture ring, which is really close to the actual body itself, to the camera body, if you compare it to, for instance, Fujifilm lenses. So all in all, the build quality of this is great. I love the fact that you have firmware upgrades on this, but autofocus and then the actual fringing, I'm not sure. Autofocus, they could probably fix the fringing. I'm not so sure they can. So that was very disappointing. Now let's go over to the Sigma, and I'm going to be very honest, I used to own this particular lens on my Sony a6400 and a7 Mark III, and basically I've always regretted selling this lens. So when I saw it on Fuji, I thought, okay, this is awesome. I really would like to have this lens. Now when it comes, again, minimum focusing distance is about 50 centimeters, sometimes 40. That's always a bit of a giveaway. The autofocus here we'll discuss in a minute, as is for the image quality. So the autofocus here on the Sigma is, especially given the fact that this is Sigma's first, let's say, autofocus lens for the X-mount system, I think they've done a wonderful job. What I did notice is on short distances between 2 and 6 meters, there is no problem. It becomes more problematic when you go into, let's say, bigger distances on f8 to f12. When you're doing landscape photography, at times it does focus, breathe, or hunt. Yeah, and that to me wasn't that bad, because it could all, I can live with it because it's landscaping, you don't have to have the motion immediately. But I really think, okay, that's one of the things I have to comment on. In terms of color rendering and fringing, I have not seen one thing of it. The pictures are very sharp. The miss of an aperture ring, yeah, that's one thing. I wish they would have an aperture ring on it, but that's probably a bit too much to ask for Sigma. Once you see the VILTROX and the Six Sigma next to each other, you really see the differences. Wide open, the Sigma really performs very well. By apertures at 2.8, between 2.8 and 5.6, both lenses normally perform well, except with the exception for the VILTROX, which at times you can still get purple, red or blue fringing. Now, disclosure here, I shot everything using the on the VILTROX and the Sigma in Rotterdam. I shot everything Kodak Extra film simulation. Afterwards I changed it to neutral. The shots you see from Krakow were shot in, I think, Fuji something. But I really noticed the fringing here for the VILTROX. In terms of price, obviously the VILTROX is a far more competitive pricing at 300 bucks, and the fact that it has a USB port where you can update firmware, definitely I could see this lens in the future improving. Overall, if you're really looking for a budget alternative, I really feel that the Sigma 56 f1.4 gives you the best value for money and performance. Now, let me know in the links below what your experiences are, because I could have a bad copy of VILTROX. That's it. Thank you very much. See you next time.